All right, cool. There we are. We are recording, and let's get a screen share happening here as well. Cool. All right, Cameron. So I'm going to jump over into the content area specific for this week. Here we go. All right. Let's see here. Okay, cool. So a few things. I want to talk briefly here. I'll show you the overview of the week is very, very straightforward here. Essentially, what we are doing is learning to identify abstract type in your surroundings, create a themed photo set alphabet. Next class, we will have a shooting day, a studio shooting day for that, where essentially it is just a day for you guys to shoot. I'll talk about that a little bit later. We've got the first round of the typo photo alphabet critique is on March 29th. We actually are off, the school is off next week for spring break. So we will critique that the first day that we get back. And then the actual final revised version of it will be the following Thursday. Let's give you some specifics on all of that stuff. All right, so the assignment sheet itself it looks long. It looks long because it's like I got 13 pages in here. 12 of those pages are examples. Okay, so like I don't want to intimidate you where you're just like, oh my god, this craziness. But essentially, what you're going to be doing is designing an alphabet using 26 themed original photographs. Okay, so these will be when I say original photographs, that means photographs that you'll be taking. These photos can be viewed or themed in various manners. I'll show you lots of examples of various themes, but some that I'm using here as an example would be similar objects could be taken or similar locations, or a visual style could be the thing that makes these themed, wherein you'll see examples of like black and white, sepia, etc. But this project really encourages you guys to think about the visual language of photographs and letter forms, because really both words and pictures are abstractions. Special types of signs that help us read and question information. And experimenting with both is a way that we can draw attention to their abstractness in various ways, which can be combined and manipulated in a variety of different ways. In addition to the photos, you're just going to type up a very brief, like 1 to 2 paragraph summary after you're done taking those photos of your design solution, which is just going to answer the basic questions. And you can bullet point this as well. I mean, it doesn't necessarily even have to be like formal paragraphs. If you just want to like bullet point each of these questions and provide a straightforward answer, that's totally fine. But essentially what I'll be looking for is for you to just explain the rationale behind your design choices. Like why did you end up going with like the specific theme within your alphabet set? Include a detailed description of how you created your alphabet. What location or subjects did you use? Did you end up extracting the images from their backgrounds, or use any post-production techniques to enhance the photos? And did you arrange the different objects so that they appear to be part of one another? And then you can describe any problems you encounter as well. But again, you can answer these questions all, I think, in 1 to 2 sentences, potentially less. So really just 2 project parameters that I want you to be aware of. Number 1, you'll be designing the full alphabet from A to Z. Most of the examples you're going to see are all uppercase, but I would be open to you doing lowercase. But I would say pick one or the other. Let's not mix uppercase and lowercase. You're going to submit all 26 edited photos into a single page grid on a 8.5 by 11 PDF, as well as I'd like to get a copy of each of the unedited photos in a zip folder. So next day is really just going to be a field production day for you guys to shoot your photographs. Depending on the direction you go with this project after looking at the examples, you might be using that time to just go to a location or a few locations, or staging. You might be able to complete this project, indoors. You don't necessarily have to go outdoors. Again, after you look at the examples, I think you'll get a good idea. But I'm giving you guys next class essentially just as a production day to shoot your photos. If you do you have access, Cameron, to a DSLR
camera?
Yeah.
No.
Okay, no worries. You can use your phone. I'm okay with that. But what I would recommend is, thinking a little bit about, especially if you're shooting with a phone, I mean, really think about like the lighting you'll be shooting in.
Mhm.
Um, Now, obviously, again, like when you start looking at these examples, you see a lot of these are edited quite heavily in post-production, which is always an option as well. But obviously, just kind of keep in mind that phones are a little bit more sensitive in terms of like poor lighting. You'll end up with very grainy photos. But I would be fine with using your phone. I mean, do you have a smartphone?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Then it's no problem. Okay. So here, let's take a look at some of these examples because again, there's a variety of ways that you could potentially go with this. This is a very abstract example, right? Where in many cases you can't necessarily even tell what it is that you're looking at that is creating the actual alphabet. So this would be the theme here. I would say there's two things that are creating a cohesive theme. Number one, visually, all of these are obviously black and white photos, and they're what I would consider like a hard black and white, or like the technical term for something like this, like extreme tonal values like this would be chiaroscuro, which is essentially like exactly like I said, like just hard blacks and whites there. And also the other unifying theme is that these are mostly close-up shots, to the fact where in some cases you can kind of tell, like what some of the things are, but in many cases you can't, again, because of like how tight they are. Another thing that the artist did here to unify this set is the aspect ratio of each of the photos. They're all square as well. So that's another thing to consider as you begin shooting these. Those are all things you can do to kind of give it a uniform look and feel. Um, so these are, I'm not necessarily even sure as I look at this. I'm not even necessarily sure, Cameron, if I could tell you like if there's an absolute like unifying theme within the object.
Yeah.
It really doesn't look like to me. Obviously, though, again, square photography. There's a lot of vignettes happening in these photos. Not all of them, many of them have like the sort of like darkened edges. Um, and I would say overall, it does look like, for the most part here, close-up photography as well. There's really nothing that's taken from a great distance. This photo set does include numbers, but that's not something that you're responsible for on yours. So the obvious theme here would be cookies and desserts. Um, this is an instance where it does look like, it's hard to say exactly. It does look to me like this was all taken in one photo, which is awesome. It is possible, though, you'll see an example or two in here where multiple photos are taken and the images are extracted out of the backgrounds and put onto a new background. But this is certainly an option for you if you want to do more than one, or potentially the whole alphabet at one time, depending on what your subject is. So here's a great example then of the objects being extracted from the background and composited just onto a white background. I think the unifying theme here is you got a few things. I mean, it's all very much taken in like an urban environment. There is, you can maybe make the argument there's like the classic visual style of like Beauty in Decay, where lots of photos of rust and texture and things of that nature, and the colors, like the beautiful kind of colors that come from things of that nature. So these are mainly, like, it looks like all sepia tone images. So that's definitely a unifying theme. And again, I very much like how all of them are consistent in terms of the frame. That's going to very much give it a very nice professional look and feel. So you don't necessarily have to use the entire photo camera. It's totally okay to like crop these in Photoshop, as well as, again, do some stylization to them in Photoshop as well. Another good example of elements that are extracted. It does look like there are one of two things are happening here. This is either actually an X-ray or it's just inverted, like the photos are just potentially inverted.
Yeah.
So they may have actually been all shot on a white background. That's another way to do this too, is that if you know you want a consistent color in the background, just shoot them all, especially if you're shooting objects, shoot them all in the same spot using the same lighting, just like either on a white sheet of paper or a black sheet of paper or something along those lines. And objects removed from their background. In this case, another theme would be that these are all potential tools of the artist, or at least of the maker. This is a gorgeous set right here. I mean, just in the way that like negative space is being used to create these letter forms, it's just fantastic. And again, a beautiful stylization of like the hard black and whites that's present here. This is another one that does include some numbers, but again, don't worry about the other numbers. Just the 26 letters of the alphabet. You know, this type of a project is not necessarily doable all, throughout the entire year, but we're definitely at the time of year where something like this would be possible potentially. All right, so lots of directions potentially that you could end up going with this. This is one of the few where not all of the frames are the same size, but I think what holds this together very, very nicely is that they are all the same height. So this, this certainly does have a very clean and professional look to it. But this is, all of these would be examples of what I'd be looking for in terms of the one PDF that's 8.5 by 11 that contains the entire, typo photo set. But then again, I'd like to get in a folder of the JPEGs that are untreated. But yeah, I definitely encourage you to do some treatment to them to again help with giving them a cohesive look and feel.
Okay.
Right. Cool. Cameron, any questions about the assignment?
Not really, no.
All right, cool.
Just excited to start working on it.
Yeah, it should be a fun one. I mean, at least it gives you the opportunity to not necessarily be sitting in front of the computer the entire time you're working on it.
Mm-hmm.
So just one more thing I want to point out to you. There is a resource that I put in here that I think is worth potentially going through. Let's see here. Okay. I thought this was an excellent article. It's a rather long one, but it's worth potentially at least sitting down and scanning through it. There's some nice videos as well. They're not necessarily all related to phototype, but some are. Like this is an 8-minute video. We won't necessarily watch this entire thing, but this would be something that I would definitely recommend that you watch. And again, it goes through some of the history of like this potentially like this subject. Okay? And then again, there are a number of I thought like just fantastic videos throughout this. So I would recommend potentially spending 15-20 minutes scanning through this. Yeah, again, lots and lots of fantastic examples throughout. Let's see, some of this is where I pulled some of these examples from as well. So this kind of ties into where they began the article, where this is actually like photo collage potentially, but like found photos that were manipulated in the letters. Yeah, again, like there's some fantastic examples of letter forms through buildings. I thought this was awesome as well, like long exposure, so nighttime exposure, where you've got somebody with a flashlight, potentially drawing those letters. The hands were also, I thought, a fantastic example there. Cool. So yeah, Cameron, I'm not saying that you necessarily have to read through this and give this a look right now, but I would definitely do so before you really invest a good amount of time on this project. But yeah, that is it. So you have the rest of the class time today to begin planning for the assignment, thinking of ideas for it. We will not be meeting formally through Zoom next class. It is yours and Kelly's time. Just dig into this project and use like that full 3 hours or more on this. You know, especially if there's going to be some travel involved. You know, I don't want you guys to have to use some of that time to log in to touch base with me. Obviously, if you have questions, though, Cameron, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. Next week, while we're on spring break, I will be out of town, but I will be checking my email periodically.
Okay.
Just may take me, depending on the day, it might take me a little bit more than like, you might not hear back from me like right away. Okay.
No problem.
But yeah, I will certainly be available if you have any questions or need anything from me at all. Okay.
Sounds good.
Okay. Cool. All right. Well, yeah, have fun with this assignment. Err on the side of taking more photos than you think that you need, especially if you're traveling somewhere. Because there's nothing worse potentially than getting home and like, you download your photos, you can look and you're like, oh man, I totally blew this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Just, have some fun with it. And again, touch base if you need anything at all from me. Otherwise, if I don't hear from you, have a fantastic spring break next week. Again,
Yeah, you do.
what is it, the 29th, I believe, is when we all come back. Yeah, so I won't see you until the 29th. But again, even if you need anything next week, reach out to me.
All right, sounds good. Yeah.
All right, fantastic, Cameron. You have a good one.
Yep, you too.
All right.